Hello, I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and you're listening to Well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. Hello, lovely listeners. Today it is you and me, and I wanted to talk to you about worry. Worry is a hallmark of anxiety, particularly generalized anxiety, and it is something that plagued my life for over 20 years. It was just something that monopolized my time and my energy and really took me away from so much that life had to offer me over that time. I'm pleased to say that it is no longer something that stands in the way of me living a rich and full life. And I wanted to share with you today a different kind of approach to worry. When we worry, our attention is focused on what might happen, particularly what will go wrong. And that's why what if questions and catastrophic thinking are part and parcel for so many people who struggle with anxiety. But depending on what we're thinking about, worry can be considered either helpful or unhelpful. It's a really nice new way to look at it. So if you think about a meeting perhaps that's coming up where you're going to be expected to deliver and you start to worry about what might happen, that worry will likely motivate you to prepare and to put yourself in a situation where there is a little bit more certainty and you feel a lot more prepared for what's going to be expected of you. Maybe you're worried about a niggly pain in your shoulder or your knee, and that particular worry might send you to the GP to get a checkup, to get an MRI or an ultrasound or some scans so that you can get some answers. So when we think about worry being helpful or unhelpful, those two examples would be helpful examples whereby that focused attention on that upcoming challenge or that niggle that you're experiencing will motivate you to take action that will make a difference. And no doubt that worry will settle down and that anxiety will settle down after the passing of the meeting that you were concerned about or getting the insights from the GP. A child or a teen might be worried about speaking in front of their class. It's very common to feel very worried about what other people might think. Are we going to say the right thing? And that worry might prompt that child or that teenager to prepare some cue cards and to practice. So there are times when worry can be helpful, but most of the time it's not. And despite the fact that worry can be helpful, it can also be unhelpful and sometimes in ways that are terrifying, paralyzing, and make us feel sick to our stomach. Most of us have been there, but for people like me and perhaps like you who struggle with anxiety, it can be overwhelming and it can actually be to the detriment of living a rich and full life, because when we're worried, our attention is usually future focused and anywhere but in the present moment where we can actually be in the moment with the people we care about and doing the things that we care about. And in the moment is the moment where we can actually make change. And so when we are worried, it can be really detracting from our happiness and from our well-being as well. Pennsylvania State University actually looked into the likelihood of the things that people worrying about coming true. And what they found was that on average, 91.4% of worry predictions did not come true. Now that figure is an average, and what this research found was that the majority of participants in this study, the things that they were worried about did not come true. But not only that, 30% of worries that did come true actually turned out better than expected. So look, despite those very promising results, I know it's not enough to rationally understand that most worries are in fact highly unlikely to come to fruition. And what we need are practical strategies that can work so that when we are noticing that we're worried about something, we know what to do to be able to what we call unhook from the worries and bring our attention back into the present moment, which is where we have some control. So that's why today I'm going to be sharing with you a new idea And this is going to help you or someone that you care about to really disengage from worry. And I mentioned the term unhooking a moment ago. And so when I talk about this unhooking, it's really the solution to getting hooked. And whenever I think about getting hooked by unhelpful or troubling or distressing thoughts, I immediately picture a fishing hook catching my clothes and really pulling me back and away from what's important. So when we're hooked on our thoughts or when we're hooked by our thoughts take over. We treat them as facts, as the absolute truth. So when we're worried about something, we're believing that in fact what we're worrying about is a fact, whereas it's really just an hypothesis and a prediction, and they're really only thoughts, and we really mustn't believe everything we think. When we're hooked by our thoughts, we also think about our thoughts as instructions that we need to act on. It can be really painful, and I know from personal experience, and I'm sure you do too, that it can be really distressing. So today we're talking about how can we unhook, and there are a number of different strategies that we can use. And I actually recorded episode 8 to share some strategies, some practical ways that you can move on from worries. And so after listening to this, if you'd like to add some more tools to your toolkit, then jump back to episode 8 and you'll probably find some crossover, but you'll also find some different and new ideas there from what I'm sharing today. Today, I'm sharing the ABC technique to help you move on from worry. And this is a technique I've adapted from one developed by clinical psychologist Dr. Beth Kurland. And it's a 3-step technique. And given that it's ABC, it means it's quite simple. And if you practice it and perhaps pop a few reminders around for you, it's likely a technique that you'll be able to think to use when you are caught up and hooked by things that are worrying you. And that's the challenge. Sometimes our attention is drawn so far away and we're so engrossed by what it is that's worrying us that it's hard to be able to draw on the techniques that we know make a difference. So pop a few reminders around, practice this, and I hope that this ABC technique is really helpful for you. So A is for acknowledge, allow, accept. So we begin by acknowledging that we're worrying about something, and we could silently say to ourselves, and I'll share a personal example, I'm worrying I've overlooked important considerations when supporting our son to choose subjects for next year. So we've been in the midst of just choosing subjects for year 10, but of course there are considerations for year 11 and 12, and there seem to be a lot of moving parts and a lot of things to consider. And that's been something that I felt really responsible for in guiding him with making his selections. And so it's really been something that's on my mind. So I'm sharing that example with you. And so I could say to myself, okay, I'm worrying about this. And almost instantly I'm making an observation. And by doing that and having that acknowledgement, it's giving a little bit of space. So rather than being so caught up in what I'm thinking about, I'm starting to step back a little. So just that acknowledgement and that observation that I am actually worrying about something can loosen the grip of the worry on us just a little. Allowing the thought to simply be there without struggling with it and accepting thoughts for what they are can also take out a lot of the sting. And so sometimes this idea of just saying, look, I'm worried about this and that's okay. I'm struggling with this and that's okay. Sometimes that acceptance, and remember, acceptance doesn't mean you have to like it, but it's just about allowing things to be as they are. That can actually be quite a relief in and of itself. B is for be in your body. And if you've listened to other episodes or you've heard me speak, then what you'll have heard me say before is about getting out of your head and into your body to help really sort of circuit break when anxiety is high. And this idea that I'm sharing today is really in the same vein. And so by using our senses, what we can do is we can help to calm our nervous system by focusing our attention on what we can see around us, by noticing the connection of our feet with the floor, and even using other senses if we need to. And I was out for a coffee yesterday with Carly Taylor, who has been a guest on this podcast a number of times, and she's a dear friend of mine. And I was sharing with her how when I was extremely anxious before presenting in front of some of my esteemed peers, I used a whole range of grounding strategies, one after the other, to give my mind a chance to move away from the focus of my turn next. I'm up on stage next. What are people going to say? What are people going to think? Am I going to be able to do things exactly as I've planned? All of those things that are very natural for anybody who's feeling anxious in a public speaking role. And what I shared, I was telling Carly, we were having a bit of a chuckle because I was kind of pulling out all the stops. So I started with my beautiful hand cream that I absolutely love. It's got a beautiful fresh citrus scent. And so I started with that, using my sense of smell, using my sense of touch in connecting with how each hand was rubbing the lotion into the other. After doing that, I used my breathing technique, really lengthening my exhale, really focusing my attention on my breath coming in through my nostrils and out through my nostrils, and really lengthening that exhale. After I'd done some rounds of breathing, I used my feet to press them into the floor. I really connected with how my feet felt in connection with the floor beneath me and wiggling my toes. And then I used another one of my senses. I used my sense of sight to look around me and to notice and silently name all of the different colors that I could see. So by doing all of those, and you don't have to do all of those, you might just choose one. In this particular set of circumstances, I had a long wait for my turn up on stage. And so I really needed to circuit break that anxiety by getting out of my head and into my body. And so you can choose any one of those. And sometimes, like me, on that particular day, you might need to string a few together. So B is for being in our body. And you can also think of B for breathe as well, because that's a beautiful way to be in our body. And it also has the added effect of this strategy that shows our anxious brain that we are safe. C actually brings a choice. And at this point, we can consider whether or not there's action that we need to take in relation to what's on our mind. And so if you were particularly worried about, like what I was worried about, which was supporting our son to make decisions that were going to set him up for the path that he wants to take academically, then despite the fact that I could circuit break my worries in the moment when I noticed myself drifting away with my worries, I also was able to plan to talk to a variety of people, both within the school and also friends whose children have been through this path before us, to get different insights. And so I could feel confident that the different considerations had been considered, I suppose is the best word for me to use there. So at this point with C, we can consider whether or not there's actually something that we need to do. If it's a helpful worry, is there something we need to do about this? A lot of the time they're unhelpful. And this is where we can start to think about what we can control. So that's another C word, what we can control. And also connecting with our values, connecting with what's important. So noticing that we've drifted, I'm observing and acknowledging that I'm worrying about this. All right, I'm allowing it to be. I'm just going to accept that, yeah, this is pretty difficult at the moment, that this is something that's on my mind. B, I'm going to come back into my body. I'm going to breathe and use other strategies to really be in my body. And C is about either considering what action I need to take or connecting with what it is that's most important right now. So stepping back, almost like zooming out, recognizing that, hey, what in the bigger picture of things, worrying isn't helpful. What can I focus my attention on now that would be really helpful and that would help me to move forward in the direction of what's really important in this moment? So I've got two summaries for you, and they're getting more concise as I go. So to summarize to begin with, A is acknowledge that you are worrying about something. Just have that observation that this is happening. Allow the thoughts to simply be rather than having this really big tug of war with them. So start to just observe that this is happening and Practice acceptance, and really that means just to accept that this is happening at the moment, and in this moment it is difficult, and know that you are putting a technique into place that can really make a difference for you. B is about bringing awareness to your body and breathing. C is consider what's helpful right now, connect with something important to you, and focus your attention on what you can control. And even more succinctly, A, acknowledge your worrying, B, breathe, and C, concentrate on what's important. Our two most precious personal resources are our time and our attention, and so much of both are swallowed by things that are out of our control and our social media. I sincerely hope that what I'm sharing with you here today is helpful to really reduce the amount of time and attention that you are giving over to unhelpful thoughts, and remembering too that what we worry about is highly unlikely to ever become a reality. Another strategy that I'd like to share with you before we part ways is this idea that we can get more perspective on our worries by asking ourselves if this is going to be something that is going to be a problem in 5 days, 5 months, 5 years. And sometimes we can recognize that, hey, yeah, okay, maybe in 5 days, but definitely not in 5 years. And sometimes it just helps to zoom out figuratively and have a look back at what's happening and just get some perspective. So I really sincerely hope that these ideas are helpful for you, even if a small part of what you take away from this episode is one part of the A, B, and C. You may not be able to put all of those into practice straight away, but even if there's just one little nugget that you can put into practice, that will make a difference for you. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr. Jodi Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time. Hi there, Dr. Jodi Richardson here. Do you have a child who's feeling anxious about starting school? A tween who's transitioning to high school, or perhaps a teen who's changing campuses in 2024 or changing schools altogether? Transitions can be especially hard for our kids and teens because they go hand in hand with uncertainty. There are just so many unknowns. But what we know for sure is that uncertainty drives anxiety. And so if you have a child or teen who's feeling anxious about school for any reason, it's perfectly understandable. Left unchecked, anxiety around school can lead to a morning off here or a day off there, and these absences can escalate to school refusal, which is why I've created a new online program for parents called Well, Hello School Anxiety. The program will run live over 4 weeks starting in mid-January, where you'll learn all about the brain, anxiety, and how to identify it, exactly what to do and say when anxiety around school shows up, powerful anxiety management strategies. You'll create a custom plan for your child's unique situation. You'll learn how to enrol the school's help to support your child through the school gate each morning, and so much more. You can learn more about this program and secure your place by heading to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and clicking through from the top of the homepage. I can't wait to work with you and help make school transitions in 2024 smoother and less stressful for the whole family.